I thought my husband was the love of my life, until I saw him at that pool party. One look at him struggling with a tiny cooler, while the other men showed off their strength, and something inside me shifted. How had I never noticed how pathetic he was? That night I made a joke about it. Everyone laughed, including him. But soon, those jokes turned into something much darker. I'm Emily, 31, and up until that summer I thought I had a pretty good life. My husband Jake was sweet, caring, and had this awkward charm that made me fall for him. We met at the cafe where I worked. He walked in during a slow afternoon, and something about his dry humor and soft smile made me say yes when he asked me out. We got married less than a year later. Looking back, maybe I should have paid more attention to certain things. Jake wasn't exactly the alpha male type, but that never really mattered to me. Or at least I thought it didn't. He was quiet, a little shy, and always tried his best to make me happy. He had a stable job as a warehouse supervisor, made decent money, and never said no when I asked him to run errands or help around the house. If you asked me back then, I would have told you I was lucky. But that pool party changed everything. Our friends Amanda and Ryan had invited us over to show off their brand new backyard. The moment we arrived, I noticed it, the difference. Ryan, Amanda's husband, was out there, shirtless, setting up the grill like some movie action star, carrying heavy patio furniture like it weighed nothing. Meanwhile, Jake, well, he struggled to carry a small cooler with a few beers inside. His arms were shaking, and I swear I could hear his little wheeze, the one he gets when he overexerts himself. I remember how Amanda glanced at me, smirking. "Your Jake is such a sweetheart," she said, her tone just a little too patronizing. I laughed it off, but the comparison stuck. The whole afternoon was like a slow-motion car crash I couldn't look away from. The other husbands played volleyball in the pool, their bodies strong and confident. And Jake? He sat on the edge, feet barely dipping into the water, looking more like a soaked kitten than a grown man. Even Amanda's teenage son asked if he was feeling okay because he looked so frail. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. For the first time, I saw Jake through everyone else's eyes, and I didn't like what I saw. After that day, something inside me shifted. I started noticing everything. At first, it was small things, things I had probably overlooked before. The way Jake struggled to open a simple pickle jar, the way he always asked for help reaching things on high shelves, even though he was taller than me, the way he got winded just from carrying groceries up the stairs. And then it got worse. We were at dinner with our friends Mike and Sarah when I made a joke, just something lighthearted. "You guys should have seen Jake at the pool party. I thought he was gonna pass out just from putting on sunscreen." Everyone laughed, even Jake. But the moment passed, and I saw the way Mike flexed his arm absent-mindedly, the way Sarah beamed with pride when she mentioned her husband had started CrossFit. Jake, he just sat there, pushing the food around on his plate. It wasn't just our friends. Even at work, I started comparing him to other men. There was Mark, a regular at the cafe. Built, confident, always talking about his construction company and his workouts. One day, he was telling me about having to fire someone who got aggressive, but Mark shut it down immediately. I caught myself imagining Jake in that situation. What would he have done? Apologized, offered them a cup of tea. The thought made me shudder. Then there was the night at Home Depot. We needed a new shower head, and the one we wanted was on the top shelf. Instead of asking for help like a normal person, Jake spent 10 whole minutes struggling with one of those grabber tools meant for elderly shoppers. Some random teenager, probably half his age, walked over and grabbed it down effortlessly. I was so embarrassed I could barely look at him the whole drive home. "You don't have to tell everyone these stories," Jake said later that night, his voice unusually quiet. I laughed, "Come on, it's funny." He didn't laugh. And that's when I realized something. It wasn't just that Jake was weak. It was that he was okay with it. He wasn't trying to change. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't bothered by the fact that every other man around him was stronger, more capable, more desirable. And that bothered me. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that I was overthinking it. But the more I noticed, the harder it became to ignore. Jake's lack of strength wasn't just physical, it was in everything. The way he shrank in conversations, the way he let people talk over him, the way he avoided confrontation like his life depended on it. And suddenly, I started noticing other men more. Mark! It started innocently enough. He was a regular at the cafe, always polite, always confident. But after that night at Home Depot, I couldn't help but see the difference. The way Mark carried himself, the way he actually filled out his shirts, the way his voice commanded attention whenever he spoke, the way he walked me to my car after my shift. It was a simple gesture, really. But when I compared it to Jake, who had stopped picking me up altogether, I felt something dangerous stir inside me. The jokes about Jake started happening more often. At work, I'd casually tell my coworker Ashley about how he couldn't open a jar of pasta sauce, how he tried running it under hot water, tapping it with a spoon, straining his wrist in the process. She nearly cried laughing. "I swear," she said, gasping for breath, "your husband is the human equivalent of a wet noodle." I laughed too, and when the nickname stuck, I didn't correct anyone. Maybe if he heard it enough times, he'd do something about it. One night, we had dinner at Amanda and Ryan's house again. Ryan was telling this story, something about a guy picking a fight with him in a Costco parking lot. "I just stood my ground, and the guy backed off," he said, grinning as Amanda beamed at him like he was a damn superhero. "And Jake?" Jake sat there, silently picking at his food. I knew exactly what he was thinking about. That time at the movie theater. We had to leave early because some teenagers were being loud. Instead of asking them to be quiet, Jake just whispered, "Let's go, it's not worth it." Not worth it, not worth standing up for me. I leaned in, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Babe, you need to make a fist first." Everyone laughed, except Jake. A few nights later, I was closing up at work when Mark showed up. "Need me to walk you to your car?" he asked. It wasn't the first time he'd offered, and normally I would have said no, but this time, I let him. We walked side by side in the dimly lit parking lot, and for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. And then, I felt something else. I glanced at him, taking in the sharp jawline, the broad shoulders, the quiet confidence in the way he carried himself. Everything Jake was. "You okay?" Mark asked, stopping near my car. I nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just long night." He smiled, the kind of smile that made me feel noticed. "You know," he said, leaning slightly closer, "if your husband ever wants to hit the gym, I could set him up with a routine." I laughed, but not because it was funny. Because I knew Jake would never take him up on it. That night, as I crawled into bed next to Jake, I couldn't shake the feeling. The shame, the guilt, the excitement. Jake stirred beside me, murmuring something in his sleep. I turned over, watching him, this man I once adored, the man I had promised to love. And for the first time, I wondered, did I still love him at all? I told myself it was harmless. Letting Mark walk me to my car, laughing at Jake's expense, comparing him to men who actually looked like men. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something was breaking between us. The dinner parties. It all came to a head at a small dinner party at our place. Nothing fancy, just the usual group. Amanda and Ryan, Mike and Sarah, and a new couple, Tom from Jake's work and his wife, Katie. I should have known from the start that Katie was going to be a problem. She had this sharp gaze, the kind of woman who actually pays attention when people talk, the kind of woman who sees through the bullshit. And that night, I gave her plenty to see. It started when Jake tried to open a bottle of wine. He struggled with the corkscrew, his hands fumbling, his face turning red. After a painful few minutes of him grunting and twisting, Ryan, of course, reached over, took the bottle, and popped it open in 2 seconds. I grinned, raising my glass, and that's why we stick to screw tops in this house. Everyone laughed, except Katie. She just looked at me. Like she knew exactly what I was doing. Then came the worst part. Ryan and Mike were swapping stories about home improvement projects, fixing decks, repairing garage doors. And Jake, desperate to contribute, he mentioned how he had fixed our leaky faucet last week. I snorted before I could stop myself. Fixed, I echoed. Babe, you spent an hour messing with it, almost flooded the bathroom, and then I had to call a plumber. The table erupted in laughter. Jake stiffened beside me, gripping his fork a little too tight. Then Katie spoke. Actually, she said, her voice calm, my brother's a plumber. He says the biggest guys are usually the worst at it. You need finesse more than strength. The conversation moved on, but the tension in the room was thick. And then Jake started telling some story about work. Something about an inventory issue he had solved. But God, he was so slow getting to the point. Stammering, over-explaining, trying too hard. I rolled my eyes. Babe, maybe let's not bore everyone with warehouse stories. We all know you're basically just counting boxes all day. That's when Katie lost it. She set down her glass with a sharp clink. Actually, she said, voice dangerously even, Jake just completed a major system overhaul that saved the company thousands. Tom's been telling me about it for weeks. The room fell silent. I forced a laugh. Well, I mean. But she wasn't finished. You know what else Tom told me, Katie continued. That Jake, been working extra shifts to cover the debt from your little restaurant attempt. That he turned down a promotion because you said you needed to stay here for your connections. That he's been seeing a therapist to deal with. She paused. Looked me dead in the eye. Constant criticism from his wife. It was like the air got sucked out of the room. I could hear the ice cubes melting in someone's drink. Amanda cleared her throat. Maybe we should. But Katie was still staring at me. You think it's funny, don't you, tearing him down like this, making him the joke? Well, let me tell you what people at his job really think. She didn't have to finish. I could already feel the weight of every set of eyes on me. I turned to Jake, desperate for backup, for him to laugh it off, to say it wasn't true. But he just sat there, staring at his plate. Like it was the most interesting thing in the world. The fallout. The party ended quickly after that. The second the door shut behind our guests, Jake turned to me. His face was calm, too calm. I can't keep being your punching bag, Emily. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. Oh, come on, Jake, you're being so sensitive. His jaw tightened. That's the problem, isn't it? You think everything is a joke. I crossed my arms. If you're embarrassed by it, maybe you should. But this time, he didn't let me finish. You should have just left me, Emily. Something sharp twisted in my stomach. What? If I embarrass you that much, if you're that ashamed to be seen with me, if you'd rather compare me to every man you meet. He shook his head, looking exhausted. Then why are you even here? And for the first time, I didn't have an answer. Jake didn't say another word that night. He just grabbed a blanket from the closet and slept on the couch. I should have felt angry. I should have gone out there and told him he was overreacting, that Katie had no right to air our personal business in front of everyone. But instead, I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure I was the good guy in this story. The next morning, Jake was already up before me. Usually, he would bring me coffee before work, a little ritual of ours. But today, there was nothing. No coffee, no good morning, just the sound of him grabbing his keys and walking out the door. The silent treatment. Days passed and everything changed. Jake stopped laughing at my jokes. He barely spoke to me at all. He didn't ask how my day was, didn't text me to see if I needed anything. When he came home from work, he just ate dinner in silence, then disappeared into the bedroom without a word. I should have been relieved. For months, I had been nitpicking him, making fun of him, comparing him to other men. And now he was finally acting like the weak, spineless man I had always accused him of being. So why did it feel so awful? Why did I suddenly feel like I had pushed too far? Mark offers a solution. I told myself I didn't care. That Jake was being dramatic, that he'd get over it. And yet, the more distant he became, the harder it was to ignore. Mark must have noticed because one night, after work, he stopped me as I was locking up. You look stressed, he said, leaning casually against the counter. I let out a short laugh. Yeah, well, my husband's been giving me the silent treatment, so that's fun. Mark raised an eyebrow. He's still mad about the gym bag thing. I hesitated. I hadn't even told him about the dinner party. Something like that. He shook his head, smirking. You deserve a man who can actually keep up with you, Emily. Someone who doesn't make you feel embarrassed. My breath caught in my throat. Because for a split second, I wanted to say it. Maybe you're right. But I didn't. Because no matter how much I had belittled Jake, no matter how many doubts had crept into my mind, I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Because if I did, it would mean this was really over. The moment it all came crashing down. A week later, Jake finally spoke. But not in the way I expected. I came home from work to find him sitting at the kitchen table, a single envelope in front of him. His face was unreadable, but there was something different in his eyes. Something I had never seen before. Strength. I talked to my boss today, he said, took the promotion. I blinked, the one that requires moving. He nodded, I leave in 2 weeks. My stomach dropped. Jake, you can't be serious. I am, his voice was steady, firm. I should have done it months ago, but I was too busy trying to prove myself to you, and honestly, I'm done. Jake, this is crazy. No, Emily. He cut me off, standing up. What's crazy is that I spent years loving someone who only saw me as a joke. I opened my mouth, ready to fight, ready to convince him he was overreacting. But then I saw the envelope on the table. It wasn't just a job offer. It was divorce papers. And that's when I realized. I had finally pushed him too far. I stared at the divorce papers like they were some kind of sick joke. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Jake was supposed to stay. He was supposed to keep trying, keep proving himself to me, keep putting up with me. But instead, he was leaving. And worse. He didn't even look angry anymore. He looked done. For the first time in our entire relationship, he had the upper hand. The aftermaths. Jake moved out 2 weeks later. There was no big fight, no dramatic goodbye. He packed his things, signed the papers, and left. Just like that. And suddenly, the house felt too quiet. At first, I told myself I was relieved, that I was free now, no more tiptoeing around his feelings, no more pretending to respect a man who wasn't worth respecting. But then, something strange happened. I started missing him. I missed his dry humor. I missed the way he made my coffee just right every morning. I missed the way he still brought me a plate of food, even after I humiliated him in front of our friends. Because for all his flaws, for all the ways I belittled him, Jake had been good to me. And I had destroyed him. Reality hits. The first time I saw him after the divorce, I almost didn't recognize him. I was at the grocery store, mindlessly picking out vegetables, when I heard a familiar voice. Emily's. I turned around, and there he was. Only, it wasn't the Jake I remembered. He looked stronger, not just physically, though there was a difference. His posture was straighter, his arms more toned, but it was in his eyes too. That quiet timidity, gone. There was confidence there now. And standing next to him. Katie. She was smiling at him, like he had just told the funniest joke in the world. Like she saw something in him that I never did. And for the first time, I felt it jealousy. Because now, Jake wasn't the punchline anymore. He was the one who had won. Looking back, I wish I could say I didn't mean to hurt him, that I just got caught up in the comparisons, the jokes, the resentment. But the truth is, I did it because I could. Because he let me. Because I thought he would always stay. But everyone has a breaking point. And once you push them too far, there's no going back. What would you do if you were in my place? Would you fight to fix what's broken, or accept that some things can never be undone? Let me know in the comments below. And if you love shocking, real-life stories, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. More jaw-dropping betrayals, heartbreak, and unexpected twists are coming your way. You won't believe what's next.